Lately, it seems like all anybody's talking about is Led Zeppelin, which, yes, they put out a documentary, which I saw and I reviewed it. Last episode I did, and I loved it and just talked about it, Becoming Led Zeppelin. I covered their first two records. I wasn't prepared for more discussion about Led Zeppelin happening after that, and it being not about those first two records that were covered in the movie, but about their sixth record, Physical Graffiti, which came out in 1975. And there's a reason why. It's because it just celebrated its 50th birthday, 1975. Now it's 2025. That's 50 years of Physical Graffiti. Kind of, Physical Graffiti in a lot of ways just sort of is like the template for like a hard rock record, or at least that's the way it's thought of. I listened to it a lot when it I want to say when it came out. I was too young to listen to Led Zeppelin when Physical Graffiti came out. Listened to it in high school. Got turned on to Led Zeppelin. Heard all their records, kind of in rapid succession. And I think at the time I might have even chosen Physical Graffiti as my favorite Led Zeppelin record, probably because it has so many songs on it. It's like two Led Zeppelin records, so why wouldn't that be your favorite? And there's some great songs on here. I mean, it's mostly known for Kashmir, that kind of epic orchestrated Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones collaboration with Robert Plant. I mean, all of them, John Bonham, all of them are brilliant in that. But just sort of this epic song that is the highlight of the record, or one of the highlights for a reason. But I want to go back and listen to it. I have not listened to it that much. Zeppelin, who I really like his channel. He talks a lot about Led Zeppelin. It's right in the name there. I believe they're his favorite band. And I'm always curious what he's going to say about anything related to Led Zeppelin, especially if they're in the news. So I couldn't wait to hear what he said about Becoming Led Zeppelin. Same thing when people started talking about Physical Graffiti. So I had mentioned in my comments to his video that I hadn't really listened to it all the way through in quite a while. He was like, yeah, you should change that. And so I have. I sat down, I played it all the way through, and I thought I would just talk about what I noticed, what I think about it now. Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti. So half of this album was brand new material at the time that they were working up after House of the Holy in 73 and 74. And half of it is older material, leftovers from Led Zeppelin 3, Led Zeppelin 4, and House of the Holy. And they put them all together and they created this album called Physical Graffiti. Like a lot of double records, I don't think it's hard because there's so much material. A lot of it gets lost unless you're like a diehard and you really obsessively listen to this record. I think the problem I have with it a little bit is the sequencing. I'm not a big fan of Custard Pie. I think it's pretty juvenile and just kind of a one-dimensional rock song. And it opens up the album. So right away, it's kind of like, and I'm an album guy. I mean, I will drop a needle and listen to an album all the way through, almost always. I'm not a guy who gets hung up on songs and plays them over and over and over again. Sometimes. But it's mostly, I listen to records. That's what I do. Start to finish. I like the narrative that a record shows. Double records can be kind of problematic that way because they can just be just a bunch of material, harder to tell unless you're Pete Townsend, like a narrative story over the course of two records. And I'm not saying all single records are that way either, but they can definitely have more of a theme. So I think Custard Pie doesn't do it a service. It's much like Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde opening up with Rainy Day Women 12 and 35, that Everybody Must Get Stoned song. Just doesn't do anything as far as setting expectations for what's coming. Same thing with Custard Pie. It's just so juvenile. And I would say the same thing with the Beatles song. People probably hate me for this, but the California Girls-esque Beach Boys song, Back in the USSR. Really? I don't know. Like, you chose that song. You chose Custard Pie. You chose Rainy Day Women to kick off these epic double records. Not a big fan of that song. It doesn't even sound like it's recorded that well. I don't know. It's okay. But then you get into the Rover. I actually really liked hearing the Rover again. The Rover, Custard Pie and the Rover were often reasons for me to turn off this record because, like I said, I like to listen to things all the way through. And if you're going to listen to an hour and a half of music by a band, you better make sure you're kind of in the mood for that. And a lot of times I would get to Custard Pie or put it on the first song or the Rover and kind of lose interest and go, I'll listen to this later. And in my time of dying can be that way too. It's a very, very long song. I didn't know Dylan's version when I was in high school and heard this for the first time and got into it. So it's interesting knowing that it, it's borrowed from a blues song and hearing it again. I absolutely love the drumming and Jimmy Page's slide guitar. It sounded really good, and I don't think it wore out its welcome. I enjoyed every minute of it, hearing it again. It's interesting to me how some people get turned on to these records. Like, I was lucky enough, I guess, to hear these records, I think all of them, in full, all the way through before I knew the single songs off of them. Because I had a friend that just turned me onto them all, like, one after another. And I'd had Led Zeppelin 4, and then he turned me on to all the other ones a couple years later. So, but like people hearing House of the Holy or Trampled Underfoot on collections of songs, and there's this guy that does these really in-depth videos. I think he does one on Physical Graffiti. It's like 4 parts. I got through like one and some change of his parts on Physical Graffiti, and he mentions how he got turned on to him through a compilation called Later Years. And just how you would notice songs like Trampled Underfoot more because, I guess it was a single, and you would notice songs like Houses of the Holy more, and paint it in a different light. I always liked Houses of the Holy because I love Houses of the Holy, the record, the title song, Houses of the Holy, didn't make it on that record, but it's one of the leftovers that made it on Physical Graffiti. Great, straight up rock song. I think it's better than Custard Pie. Pretty lightweight, but cool. Definitely dabbles in a little mysticism, like Satan knocking on Satan's doorway. I don't know what exactly they're on about there, but enjoyable song for sure. Trample Underfoot borrows super heavily from Stevie Wonder. I didn't know that at the time I first heard this record, but becoming a pretty big Stevie Wonder fan in the interim, you definitely notice that. It's also, I never really listened to the lyrics, totally comparing like a woman to a car. I mean, it's clever, juvenile again, like Custard Pie, but it's a pretty cool song. It's just way different than anything that they had really done, except for maybe the crunge off of House of the Holy. And it was released as a single, which I find absolutely crazy that you would choose that song to represent Physical Graffiti. But hey, it's actually kind of a cool song. It works. And then you get to Kashmir, which is just an epic. Still sounds so wonderful. That guitar part, it just builds and builds and builds. And the strings, the whole orchestra John Paul Jones brought into it. The lyrics, this mysticism. And there's this moment on it that I think is probably like the best Robert Plant moment on this record for sure, and one of my favorite Robert Plant moments ever. It's when he says, trying to find the way I feel, and he holds the note feel over that riff repeating again for what seems like just an insane amount of time, and it just sends shivers up and down my spine. I absolutely love that. In the Light kicks off like the second of the 2 records, one of the new songs that they worked up for this record, along with Kashmir and In My Time of Dying, The Rover, and Custard Pie, and others. Again, a really optimistic song, reassuring, mystic sounding again. It was featured in this TV show called Mindhunter. It just did such a fine job of it. I know that some friends of mine, one friend of mine in particular, who's a huge music guy, but just I think never got into Led Zeppelin, just saw them as very one-dimensional hard rock, and his influences were and taste was very, very broad. I absolutely love that song, and I think it got him into this album as a whole too, which is really cool. It is just a gorgeous song, and I've always loved In the Light, and it was really cool hearing that again. Decent volume sitting between 2 speakers. My favorite part of this record, I'm realizing, is side 3, because it kicks off with In the Light, then it gets into Brown Yo R. I think I'm saying that right. It's the cabin, named after the cabin where they wrote a bunch of the songs on Led Zeppelin 3. I think some of them on Led Zeppelin 4, and I believe this is a leftover from Led Zeppelin 3. It was used in The Song Remains the Same, and that's how I always remember it. And even when I hear it, I think of that scene, which I haven't seen since I was probably 15, and The Song Remains the Same. I believe it's like they're coming through a tunnel in a limo after a show, and it just kind of evokes this feeling of exhaustion. And it makes me wish, when I hear this now, it makes me wish for a solo Jimmy Page record that doesn't get a David Coverdale or another Robert Plant sound-alike. to sing lead vocals over songs that sound like they could be Led Zeppelin songs, unless they're songs like this. Like, I think he could pull this off all by himself, make a John Fahey kind of record. I could listen to this all day long, songs like this. So you never know. I don't think that's really in the cards for him, but who knows what he's got lying around. Down by the Seaside, gorgeous. Love the song, left over from 4, I believe. I love the background vocals, very slow, kind of taking it easy, kind of wistful song. Never get tired of that one at all. 10 Years Gone, I'd kind of forgotten about. Another one of those songs where it's like they sing the song title over and over, and they don't rather. And 10 Years Gone, I'm like, wait, which song was that? Was that the Wonton song? Was that Sick Again? Some of these songs I kind of get confused. And anyways, really great to hear 10 Years Gone again, and having a little bit of context I didn't really realize at the time that I first heard this record is that it's this love letter, not really a love letter, but a letter thinking of this former girlfriend who actually gave him a choice. Either it's me or the band, or it's me or a career in music. And he chose a career in music, and he's really glad he did. He talks about all the memories that he's had, all the experiences, or references them, and then kind of wonders what she's up to as well. So 10 Years Gone. Yeah, really cool song. I really like that one a lot, hearing that again. And definitely have new appreciation for it, being older, being through relationships myself, and sometimes wondering, what happened, where those people are, and, being curious about it anyway. And then, Night Flight kicks off the last side. Never really cared for Night Flight. It sounded okay to me, though, on this, listening to it all the way through. It sounded really great. I mean, John Bonham's drums alone, just on this record, listening to it between 2 speakers on vinyl, like I did the other day, you like notice them even on the songs you just average Led Zeppelin songs, which I think Night Flight is one. Wonton Song kind of means more to me now, because when I saw Robert Plant live in 2015, he opened up with the Wonton Song. Another one of those songs, the Wonton Song. Yeah, what is the Wonton Song? But I recognized it. I just couldn't place it. And it was so good. And it was like, Robert Plant oftentimes does not do faithful versions of Led Zeppelin songs, and I admire the hell out of him for it, because he's grown so much as a performer and as an interpreter, as an artist. But he did do a really faithful version of the Wonton Song, opening up with it. And I swore, if you squinted your eyes a little bit, you saw the physical graffiti of era Robert Plant, still there, and it certainly sounded like it. Boogie with Stu, I really like the looseness of it. It was recorded at the same time as the song Rock and Roll off Led Zeppelin 4, so it's another outtake from Led Zeppelin 4. Super, super loose, playing with Ian Stewart from, sort of from the Rolling Stones, and just, playing the song recorded at the same time as Rock and Roll. Kind of has that, almost that riff of rock and roll. You can kind of hear it in there if you listen closely. And then you get into Black Country Women. I like this song a lot. I guess it was recorded outdoors. They're recording House of the Holy, and I think there's a plane that goes overhead, and they mentioned it at the very beginning. Very, very loose song, blues song. I like the feel of songs like this and Bronya R and Boogie with Stu, and I kind of wish the order was shuffled around so you heard this stuff earlier on, so you kind of knew, oh, this is going to be a really interesting kind of mixed bag, rather than thinking it might be a little one-dimensional based on the songs that kick it off. But love hearing that. And then it ends with Sick Again, which is one of those rock songs I don't think I ever really noticed. Last song on Physical Graffiti, so you're listening to a lot of music before you get to it. But it sounds so good. And the lyrics are interesting. I mean, it's all about groupies, but it's not like celebrating them. It's more of a cautionary tale. Seeing them year after year come back. They're super young, way too young, and Robert Plant is just kind of like getting a little disturbed by it all. But it's a great rock and roll song, and kind of a cool way to end the record. And so listening to it again, I really liked it. I really appreciate it. I realized again that I like side 3. Like, that's my jam. I could listen to side 3, and I probably will more often now if I want to get a little taste of Physical Graffiti. There's certain songs I think I just pull up digitally to hear. Listening to it all the way through, I don't know that I've changed my mind on that. I don't know that I'm going to be dropping the needle and playing it all the way through too often, but it was really nice hearing it again. I really am glad I did. It's interesting if you weigh the old material that was repurposed against the new material. they're both excellent. I mean, if they had just put out the new material, you'd have an album that would be pretty damn good. And of course, if they never put all these leftovers out, by the time you got to something like Coda, if all these leftover tracks were on Coda, oh my God, we'd be talking about Coda in a whole different way. But these songs were meant to come out. These were not songs that they were gonna forget about. Certainly once they started having the idea for a double record. So yeah, it was cool. It was cool. I'm glad I listened to Physical Graffiti again. Led Zeppelin's 6th record, their only double record, came out in 1975, and it's now 50 years old. Let me know your thoughts about Physical Graffiti. And what's your favorite Led Zeppelin record? I think I'm on record of saying it is How's the Holy for me, the one that came out before this. Anyway, thanks everyone. Appreciate it.